Hey everyone, this is MusicTechHelpGuy, and in this video I'll show you an easy way to create chord progressions with zero music theory knowledge whatsoever. Now, although I consider this a quick trick, this will end up being another longer format video. So I'll leave bookmarks to each of the different sections of the video in the video description and in the comments below. Now, don't get me wrong, I have a master's degree in music. I teach college-level music and audio classes. I'm not diminishing the importance of understanding music theory or even just having a basic fundamental understanding of music concepts and music fundamentals. I'm not diminishing that whatsoever, but if you're just looking to start creating music and you really don't understand chords and you don't understand the makeup of chords, you can sort of bypass that for a little bit using the trick that I'll show you in this video. Now, if you are interested in learning formal theory, I just created a course called Music Theory 109, Music Theory for DAW Musicians over at macprovideo.com. It goes through understanding notes, how to read notes on the staff and reading them in piano roll, understanding rhythm, major and minor key structure, scale structure, chord structure, and building chord progressions. So if that's something you're interested in, go check that out. I'll leave a link to it in the video description below. But as sort of a primer to that, you can do this with very minimal music theory knowledge. Now, to expand on chord progressions and create things like seventh chords and other expanded harmony, you're going to need at least a fundamental understanding of music theory. So while this video may be helpful to you, it's only going to take you so far. Okay, so to start, I've just got a drum loop here, which I'm going to mute for now. I've got just a stock piano instrument here. I'm going to start with piano, and then I'll add something that's a little bit more texturally interesting later. So the first thing I'm going to do is just create an empty MIDI region, open it up in piano roll here, and we're going to create a scale. And chords really are based on scale structure. C major, for example. Or A minor, for example. And those are the two that we're going to use in this video to construct chord progressions. If you just start with all of the white keys on the piano, I'll start up here on C3, and you sort of stack notes vertically, you get the C major scale, and I'm just using the white keys. Now, that does not mean if I start on D, that's a D major scale. It's not really correct. If I wanted a D major scale, I'd have to shift all of these notes up. And you'll note that some of the notes, like F sharp here and C sharp here, are on black keys. So the reason why I'm using C major as a starting reference point is that, first of all, it's the easiest scale to learn. It has no sharps, no flats, so no black keys. And you can easily transpose any chord progressions you create with it over to another key using your DAW. So what I like to do is stack up one octave C to C, and actually what I like to do is stack up one octave not including the top C, and then duplicate this up an octave. So I'm going to hold Option and duplicate this C3 up to C4. So now essentially what I have is 2 octaves of the C major scale. And by the way, if you're wondering about minor chord progressions and minor scales, we're going to get to that in just a second. What I use this as sort of like a skeleton to figure out all of the chords that are normally in the key of C major. So for example, if I start on the bottom note here, C, skip a note, then go up to E, skip a note and go up to G, I get a C major triad, or a C major chord. A triad is just another name for a chord with only 3 notes. So mostly what I'll be dealing with in this video are triads, 3-note chords. Now, you could add other notes, like you could say, I want to duplicate the C up an octave. That's still technically a C triad, even though there's 4 notes. The C's are duplicates, or I could add another E, or I could add another G. It's still a C major chord, or still a C major triad, because you're only using those 3 notes, C, E, and G. What you can do is keep continuing this on all the way up the scale. So let me just sort of build my scale horizontally as well. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And again, I'm using all white keys on the piano. I'm skipping all the black keys. So then what I'm going to do is skip notes vertically like I did before. So I'm not going to use E, but I'll use F, skip G, go up to A. And you can just continue this process on and on and on, all the way up. You'll notice that the interval, the space of the middle note changes across time, and that's because the quality of each of the chords changes. Now, again, I told you we're going to do this with pretty much no theory knowledge, so I'm not going to talk about the quality of the different chords. You can learn more about that in my Music Theory for DAW Musicians course if you're interested in that. But basically, I want you to think about these chords as numbers. Think of the first one as the 1 chord, the 2 chord, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. When you get to 8, it's just the 1 chord again. They're the same notes, just up an octave. So I can kind of just delete that one. But note that all of the notes in each of the chords are derived from the scale. So now when it comes to building chord progressions, you have to do something with this information. You're never going to just have a chord progression that goes up in a scale like this. Doesn't really sound that great. What you want to do is sort of pick and choose different chords and play around with what they sound like together. Like I could go 1, 4, 5, or I could go 1, 4, 6, 5, or I could try 1, 5, 6, 3. You know, you can sort of jump around a bit. And some chord progressions will sound better than others, but essentially what this is it's just a tool for you to start building chord progressions. So over here on measure 2, I'll start building out a chord progression, just a really basic one. Now what I like to do is select all of these notes in my reference here and hit Control M, because I don't really want to have them play, I just want to see them as a reference. So if I start over here on measure 2, I'm going to build down, I'll start on the 1 chord. So I'll do like half note chords, so each chord is 1/2 of a measure. And then maybe I'll go up to 6. So 6 was E, C, E, or A, C, E rather. And then maybe I want to go down to 4. So 4 was F, A, C. And then maybe I want to go down to 3, E, G, B. Okay, not that interesting. Let's maybe try swapping the 4 and 3 chord. So let's move the 3 chord over. And again, the 4 chord is F, A, C. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. It sounds like it has some motion to it. The other thing you can do is you can play with the inversion of the chords, or the voicing of the chord. So that basically describes how the notes are arranged in each of the chords. So you see how this chord starts down here, the 1 chord jumps all the way up to the 6 up here. That's quite a jump, that's quite a leap. So chords generally will sound better when the voicing is more compact. One thing you can do is we could take one of these notes and drop it down an octave. So I'll hit Shift Option down to drop it down an octave. And now sort of the chord or voicing, the motion of the chords is more compact. I could even go a step further and take this one down an octave. But let's listen to what this sounds like right now. Let's try dropping this one down an octave as well. Yeah, that's Shift Option up and down moves notes up or down an octave. Now, I'm not a big fan of this 4 chord. Let's try a different one there. Let's try something that's got more of like a somber sound to it. Let me try putting the 3 chord at the end. And let me try putting the 2 chord in between the 6 chord and the 3 chord. So the 2 chord is D, F, A. So I'll just type D, F, A over here. Let's see what that sounds like. We're not really getting a somber feeling, as much of a somber feeling as I'd like, because we're in a major key right now. So let me try the 4 chord again, but instead of at the end, we'll put it in between the 6 and the 3 chord. So the 4 chord again was F, A, C. But let's try pulling the top note down an octave. just to kind of play with that voicing. And you'll see we've got this voice that just, the bottom note that just stays the same. It's a common tone in all three of these chords. Let's try pulling this one down as well. We could throw like a different instrument on that. Let me go into my library here. I'll use one of my Divine Waves settings here. Let me use this one called Beautiful Creatures. And then you could loop it out if you wanted to. Just hitting Command R. Throw a beat under it or throw some other instruments under it. Let me try a different patch here. This one called Into the Storm. I think this is like a string patch. It's not quite somber enough, though. It's kind of uplifting and happy sounding, even though I've sort of picked, you know, some of the chords that are more somber in tone. So let me try doing a minor chord progression instead of a major chord progression. By the way, shameless plug. If you're interested in this set of EXS24 sample instruments here, I created this set of EXS24 sample-based instruments. It's called Divine Waves. I'll also leave a link to that in the video description below. It's like $29 for like 25 gigs in samples. So if you like what you hear, go check it out below. It supports me and it helps support the channel as well. Okay, let's try minor keys. Let's go back to just a stock piano sound here. And let's do this same thing here, but in minor. So the great thing about the minor and major keys is they can be relative to each other. So just like there is a major scale with all white keys, there is a minor scale with all white keys. So for example, the minor scale with all white keys is the A minor scale. So you start on A, and you just build the scale vertically, 1 octave, and then I just like to have a second octave, so I'll duplicate it. And then you can do the same thing we did before, building sort of a set of reference chords. So what I'll do, let me just get the library out of the way here. I have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then the A chord is the one chord that repeats again. And then I just skip every other note. So I skip B, go up to C, skip D, go up to E. We just follow this same pattern like before, skipping white keys, not using any black keys, and we'll get into transposing in just a bit. And now we have all of the chords that we can use in the key of A minor. So again, we call this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm not going to, like I said, because this is not a theory-heavy video or tutorial, don't want to focus too much on the theory. Just think of them as like scale degrees, like 1 through 7. So let's try the 1 chord. By the way, you don't always have to start on the 1 chord. I'll show you an example of that in just a bit. But here's 1. Let's say I want to go up to 6, which is F, A, C. And then let's go down to, let's go to 4, D, F, A. And then we'll land on 5, which is E, G, B. And another thing, too, is chord progressions don't have to be 4 chords long. You can use as many chords as you want. I just, for this example, I'm just kind of keeping it simple. Let's see what this sounds like. Let me just mute the drum loop. So once again, let me play around with some of the voicings. Let me drop all of these notes up top here down an octave. That sounds really good. Let me duplicate it And instead of going back to the 1 chord here, let me go to the 3 chord. So the 3 chord is C, E, G. So we have C, E, G. And then instead of going to the 6 chord, then I'll go to the 4 chord. So the 4 chord is D, F, A. So D, F, A. Let's drop this top note down an octave. And then I'll do 6 and 7. So the 6 chord is F, A, C. Or excuse me, yeah, F, A, C. F, A, C. The 7 chord is G, B, D. Let's drop these top 2 notes on each one down an octave. Let's see what this chord progression sounds like. Yeah, that sounds really nice. Let's actually throw a different instrument in here other than piano. Once again, I'll just use my Divine Waves instruments. Let's do something called Oceanborn. And if I wanted, I could duplicate this. So hit Command R, repeat it rather. Let me just sort of like filter this loop. It's a little too, give it sort of like a lo-fi sound. Remember the chord progression that you created, the numbers, because it's going to come in helpful later when you try to add additional chords or additional instruments, or maybe like a bass line to your song. So after you start inverting things and changing these voices, it's a little more difficult to sort of remember and identify, what these chord progressions are without having any music theory knowledge. I'm going to copy this clip down that I had my reference info on, my chord note reference on. Let's create a new blank region. I'll join these together. Now I can come in here and lay in a bass line. So if I'm going to write this down just so I don't have to keep going back, but 1 is A, and I'm just looking at the bottom note, by the way. 1 is A, 6 is F, 4 is D, 5 is E, 3 is C, 4 is D, 6 is F, and 7 is G. So I've got like all my bass notes that I can use, and you can use them in this octave or a lower octave. For bass, probably going to want to go lower, like down to the 0 and 1 octave. So what I'll do is I'll type in A for 1, 6, which is F, and I can go up or I can go down. 4 is D, E is 5, C was 3, 4 is D, and then F is 6, and then G was 7. So now I have a corresponding bass line, or bass note, for each of the chords in my other instrument. Let's try that out. Let's drop these 3 down an octave. Now the other thing you can do with the bass is we can do this with the chords too, but you can sort of give it some rhythm. Maybe I wanted to add like a little dom, ba-dom, ba-dom, ba-dom. We could play around with this. So maybe this first note A, maybe I'll put like a high A up here, right? Then here's an F. Maybe I'll put like a high F up here. Here's E. Let me put a low E down here. Here's C. Let me put like a low C down here. So you can do things like that. Or if you remember what each of the notes in each of the chords were, you could make this sort of extra note be a note within one of those chords. Like the one chord was A, C, E. So instead of this being A, I could make it E, I could make it C. Same thing here. This is an F chord. This is F, A, C. I could make this C because it fits within the chord progression at that particular time. It fits within the harmony of the triad at that particular time. You know, this chord is D, F, A. So I could put an F in here as one of these little passing tones. This one was E, G, B. So instead of going down a full octave, I could maybe just go down to B. So it's all about remembering the structure of each of these chords. And what I highly recommend you do is, if you don't, you know, even if you just do this, you might even want to grab some staff paper, if you know how to read music, that is. Grab some staff paper and write it out, or just on a piece of paper, write out the note names for each one of these notes, because then it's just going to make the whole chord progression, and it's going to make MIDI editing and composition a lot easier for you. Let me try quantizing these to 16th notes, but then pulling up the swing a bit, because the song's got a bit of like a swing to it, or the loop has a bit of a swing to it. Now, the other thing about this is you can do anything you want with the rhythm of a chord progression. I'm just using half notes because it's simple, but you could, you know, you could change this up a bit. You could maybe shorten these chords, and then maybe I'll choose a different, sort of like a harder hitting patch. And maybe I'll go up an octave. You can also try different rhythms for the chord part as well, and then use this as a reference for your bass line. All you have to do is select both of the regions up in the main window in Logic, and it'll show both of their MIDI data down in the piano roll editor. Like maybe I'll do, so this is still ACE, but maybe I'll try doing like an E here on my little passing tone. Or I could try a C, because it's in the chord as well. Now this is C, E, G. So let's try to find something that makes sense here. C is the same note. E would sort of go downward. Now I'm not so sure about this one. This is B, E, G. And I have it on C, so let's try B. Now, let's try E. Let's try G. Yeah, that sounds better. And then this little passing chord is F, A, D. So let's try F first. Let's try A. And then my other option was D. Let's try D. Cool. And the last two were 6 and 7, which is F and G. So I can repeat this. Let me drop this down an octave, actually. Let me add something on here to give the bass some motion. Maybe I'll throw like the arpeggiator on here, like a swung 16th pattern. So this is a chord preset. I don't want that. Let me choose a different preset up here. Oh yeah, that's funky. Cool, let me take that filter off. So that's just a way to get started. Another thing you could do is, let's say you don't want to work in A minor. If you don't want to work in A minor, you can simply transpose the chords to any key. They maintain their relative numbers. They maintain their relative sort of position within the scale, 1 through 7. But there's two ways you can do it. One, you can just drag over all of your MIDI regions, and you can just hit Command A, and you can hit Option up or down. So like, let's say I want to go from the key of A minor to the key of C minor. All I'm going to do is make sure that I'm shifting this bottom note here up to C. So I'm just hitting Option up to shift everything up, including the reference. So now I'm in C minor. Or maybe I want to shift up to, maybe I want to go up to E flat minor, so I'll go up a few more. So again, I'm just paying attention to that root, that bottom note there. Or if that's too high, I can try a lower octave of E flat minor. Just hit Shift Option down. So sometimes when you transpose your progression up or down, you may have to play around with where the bass is located, because sometimes the bass can be so low that it doesn't really come through. So here I've transposed the chords down to E flat, but I've transposed the bass up to E flat. Another thing you can do, sort of like a quick way to do it without having to move any MIDI notes, is you can simply use the MIDI effect called the transposer. So right now I'm in the key of E flat or D sharp. Let's say I wanted to go up to F. What I could do is go up 2 semitones or half steps up to F. So 1, 2. So I could just say transpose this up 2 semitones, and it will pull all of those up. But the problem is you have to put this transposer on all of these channels. I prefer not to do things this way because I actually like to look at the notes and see exactly what note is being used. You can also transpose within the inspector here. So you could click on a region and you could say transpose plus 4 semitones, you know, and I'd do that for both of these, and it transposes them up. But again, the problem is it's still showing E flat in the MIDI editor, in the piano roll editor. So you just have to remember that everything's been transposed up 4 half steps. So I don't like doing that. You can do it that way, but I prefer just shifting the notes and knowing exactly what I'm working with. So that's my method of building chord progressions with basically no music theory knowledge other than being able to read notes on the piano, at least the white keys on the piano. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to see more content like this. You can also check me out on social media, and if you'd like to make a monthly contribution to the channel, you can also check me out over at patreon.com/MusicTechHelpGuy. Thanks for the support, and thanks for watching.